Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. This time, we're tackling a big one. Are we alone in the universe? There's actually some new research that's really changing how people think about this whole thing.
It definitely makes you wonder if we're not just some random accident, just a 1 in a million chance.
Right. And, for a long time, the main theory was this thing called the hard steps model, which basically says that for intelligent life to even exist, a ton of unlikely things have to happen in a row, like all in the right order.
Exactly. So a physicist named Brandon Carter, he came up with this model back in 1983, and it basically says that you've got all these huge hurdles for life to evolve.
Like what kinds of hurdles? What are some of the specific hard steps?
Well, you've got to start with the basics, right? Like forming those first molecules that could actually replicate themselves. And then you need RNA and DNA to evolve. Then you need life to go from just like single cells to more complicated multicellular organisms. Oh, and then there are things like how did sex evolve? And language even.
It's kind of crazy to think about it all. And I remember Carter looked at the timeline of life here on Earth, and it seems like humans showed up kind of late in the game, didn't he?
Yeah, that's one of the main things that made him think intelligent life is probably super rare in the universe. All those hard steps, they take so much time. Earth has been around for a long time, but humans just sort of popped up recently, at least compared to how long the sun's going to be around.
So if it's really that rare, why are we even bothering to search for aliens? Seems kind of pointless.
Well, that's where this new research comes in. It's a totally different way of looking at how intelligence might happen.
So what's different?
So this study, it says that maybe intelligence isn't just this crazy random event, but it's actually a natural consequence of how life interacts with the environment on a planet. It's like a whole paradigm shift.
So instead of it all being about random chance, this new model saying that a planet actually kind of sets the stage for complex life.
That's the idea.
So this study I was reading, it looked at things like how oxygen levels changed on Earth. Yeah. And also like the saltiness of the ocean and whether there were enough nutrients for life. All those things changed gradually over millions of years, right?
Yeah.
So you're saying those changes actually determined what kind of life could evolve.
Well, think about it this way. Different plants, they need different environments to grow right. Some need more sun, some need less, some like it dry, some like it wet. So just like plants, life is always adapting to its environment. And as the environment changes, that can cause life to make these big jumps in evolution.
So maybe instead of humans being late bloomers, we actually showed up right on time. Like Earth was finally ready for us.
Exactly. And what if that's true for other planets too?
Oh, wow. So some planets could be way ahead of us in terms of intelligent life. And others are just getting started. That's wild to think about.
And it means that maybe we shouldn't assume that other planets have to follow the same path that Earth did, or that they'll be on the same timeline.
It's kind of cool how this new study shows this connection between a planet and the life that lives on it. It's almost like a planet isn't just a big rock. It's more like this living system.
Yeah. And what's so interesting is that this research brings together astrophysics and geobiology, two fields that don't usually overlap that much. But it shows how changes on a planet can directly affect how life evolves.
That makes sense. So this new research says intelligence might be more common than we thought. So does that mean we should be looking for it differently?
Yeah, we might need to change how we're searching. Like maybe we shouldn't just be trying to find planets that are exactly like Earth.
What should we be looking for then?
Maybe we should look for planets that have a history of change. Like planets that have gone through these growing pain that could lead to more complex life.
So instead of Earth 2.0, we should be looking for planets that have had big environmental changes. Like they had to go through their own hard steps.
Yeah, exactly. This opens up so many more possibilities for where life might exist. And who knows, there could be all kinds of crazy life forms out there that are way different from anything we can even imagine, shaped by their own unique planets.
That's amazing. So it's like we're just at the beginning of a whole new chapter in the search for extraterrestrial intelligence.
And it's not just about finding aliens anymore. It's about understanding how life itself evolves.
And understanding our own place in it all. We covered a lot of ground today.
We did. And in the next part, we're going to go even deeper into what this new model means for the search for life beyond Earth.
Can't wait. We'll be back soon for part 2.
Welcome back to our deep dive, into whether we're alone in the universe or not.
Yeah, this new research really has me thinking differently about the search for aliens. Like, maybe it's not such a long shot after all. Maybe intelligence is kind of baked into how planets and life work together. What do you think?
It is a pretty big shift in perspective. And you're right. We were talking about how this study looks at all these gradual changes in Earth's environment, like the oxygen levels and how salty the ocean was, and even just like how many nutrients were around. All those things shifted over millions of years. And the study says those changes actually like paved the way for a more complex life.
It's like Earth spent all that time slowly cooking up the perfect recipe for intelligent life. And we're just this dish that came out at the right time.
I like that analogy. And the cool thing is that this recipe for life, it might not be unique to Earth.
So you're saying there could be tons of planets out there, each with their own unique set of ingredients and their own timelines. And eventually they cook up their own intelligent life.
Exactly. Imagine a whole universe full of different life forms, each one shaped by its own planet's history.
Okay, that's awesome. But how do we even begin to look for something like that? It's not like we can just point our telescopes at a planet and be like, hey, you're intelligent.
Haha. No, it's definitely not that simple. But this new model does give us some clues. It basically says that we should be looking for planets that have a history of environmental change. Like those are the planets that are more likely to have cooked up something interesting.
So instead of just trying to find another Earth, a perfect twin, we need to broaden our search.
Yeah, we need to move past this idea that intelligent life has to look exactly like us or live on a planet exactly like ours. There could be so many different kinds of intelligence out there.
So what kinds of signs should we be looking for? If a planet has gone through all these changes, what will we actually see?
Well, one thing we could look for are changes in a planet's atmosphere. Like here on Earth, the rise of oxygen was a huge deal for life. It allowed for all kinds of new and more complex organisms to evolve. So if we could spot similar changes in the atmosphere of another planet, that might be a clue that something interesting is happening there.
And what about geological activity, like volcanoes and stuff? Could that play a role too?
Absolutely. Volcanoes are amazing. They can release all sorts of important nutrients and gases into the atmosphere and the oceans. They can even create new land masses and change the shapes of continents. All that stuff can have a big impact on how life evolves.
So we should be looking for planets that are dynamic, like planets that are constantly changing and evolving, not just planets that seem stable and boring.
Exactly. The more dynamic a planet is, the more chances there are for life to adapt and change and maybe even become intelligent.
It feels like we're on the verge of this whole new era in the search for extraterrestrial intelligence.
It's a really exciting time to be in this field. And remember, it's not just about finding aliens. It's about understanding how life itself works, how it started and how it changes and evolves here on Earth and everywhere else.
And ultimately trying to figure out where we fit into this whole crazy, amazing universe.
Exactly. And it makes you wonder, if this new model is right and intelligence is more common than we thought, what if there are civilizations out there that are way more advanced than us, like millions of years ahead?
Whoa. It's kind of mind-blowing to think about what their technology would be like or how they would understand the universe.
And it raises another really important point. We have to be careful not to assume that our definition of intelligence is the only one.
Right.
There could be forms of intelligence out there that are so different from ours that we might not even recognize them as intelligent.
Yeah, that's true. We tend to think of intelligence as being like us, using tools and building stuff. But maybe there are other ways of being intelligent. Like maybe based on different ways of thinking or different ways of interacting with the environment?
Like imagine a civilization that's figured out how to communicate telepathically. Or a civilization that lives in perfect harmony with its environment in a way we can barely even imagine. Our current ways of searching for aliens might totally miss those civilizations.
Wow. So we really need to think outside the box when it comes to what we consider intelligent life.
That's what makes this whole thing so fascinating. We're always having to rethink our assumptions and our limitations and just trying to wrap our heads around the vastness of it all, Yeah.
It's a good reminder that we're still just scratching the surface.
It really is. Who knows what amazing discoveries are waiting for us out there?
And even if we never find another civilization, just thinking about these questions can change how we see ourselves and our place in the universe.
Absolutely. It's a journey of self-discovery as much as it is a search for something else.
So before we go to the last part of our deep dive, I wanted to go back to something you said earlier. You mentioned that some civilizations might be way ahead of us. If that's true, are there any ethical things we should be thinking about as we keep searching?
That's a really important question, and it's something we're going to talk about in a lot more detail in our next segment. Because, the idea of finding a civilization that's maybe thousands or even millions of years ahead of us technologically and maybe even ethically, it raises a lot of big questions and a lot of potential concerns, too.
Yeah, That's a whole other conversation.
We'll be right back to dive into all of that.
And we're back for the final part of our deep dive. We've been talking about how intelligent life might actually be pretty common out there. But what would it actually mean to find another civilization?
Will be a pretty big deal, right? Especially if they're way more advanced than us. It raises so many questions, like scientifically, but also just philosophically. What does it even mean to be human if there are other intelligent beings out there?
Yeah, it would definitely shake things up. It would be like realizing we're not the center of the universe anymore.
Exactly. And it makes you realize that all the things we care about, art, music, philosophy, maybe those aren't unique to us either. Maybe there are other beings out there asking the same big questions, trying to figure out their place in the universe.
It's kind of overwhelming to think about. So let's say we do find proof that another civilization exists. What do we do then? Like, we can't exactly just pick up the phone and call them.
No, you're right about that. It's not that simple. It's actually a really tough question. Should we try to contact them, or should we just watch from a distance?
Yeah, it's like a sci-fi movie waiting to happen. What do you think?
Honestly, there are good arguments on both sides. It's a debate that's been going on for decades.
What are some of the arguments for reaching out?
Well, some people think that we have like a moral obligation to try and make contact. They say if there are other intelligent beings out there, we could learn so much from them. Maybe share knowledge and work together on scientific projects, maybe even solve some problems here on Earth. Like, who knows what they know?
That makes sense. But isn't it kind of risky, too? What if they're not friendly?
Oh, yeah. That's definitely a big concern. We have no idea what their intentions might be. I mean, they could be totally peaceful and curious. Or they could be hostile. Or something else entirely. Something we can't even imagine.
So it's like a trade-off.
Yeah.
Do we risk potential danger for the chance to connect with another intelligence?
Exactly. It would be a huge decision. And it's not one that scientists should make alone. You'd have to involve ethicists and philosophers and people from all different cultures. It would need to be a global decision.
But even if we decide to play it safe and just observe them from far away, couldn't that still be risky?
Definitely. Even trying to be sneaky could backfire. What if they notice us watching them? Would they see it as a threat? Or maybe try to contact us first? And are we ready for that?
It's kind of scary to think about.
Yeah.
But also exciting. It really makes you think about our place in the universe and our responsibility to other life forms.
That's one of the most fascinating things about searching for extraterrestrial intelligence. It's not just about finding aliens. It's about understanding ourselves better and our place in this huge, amazing cosmos.
Even if we never actually find another civilization, just the act of searching is pretty profound.
It really is. It forces us to ask big questions.
Yes.
About who we are and what matters and what it means to be intelligent.
As we wrap up this deep dive, what would you say is the one thing you want people to take away from our conversation?
Well, I think the question of whether we're alone in the universe is one of the most important questions humans have ever asked. It's a question that's driven us to explore and invent and create for centuries.
And whether we find aliens or not,
Yeah.
that search itself is pretty incredible. Shows how curious we are.
Yeah.
And how much we want to understand the universe and our place in it.
So yeah, keep looking up at the stars, keep asking those big questions, and never stop exploring.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.